Welcome to 5 Minutes Knowledge Channel. Today we learn about why does Russia have so much land. Have you ever wondered why Russia is so big? Why is a country with about 145 million people only nearly half of the population of the United States, about 332 million people, but Russia has an area of 17,098,246 square kilometers? It is the largest country in the world by area. Russian territory spans 11 time zones stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Pacific Ocean. And we often realize that most of the Russia's territories is often very deserted and few people live. Most of the population is concentrated around Moscow, so we can understand the pressure on transporting goods, food, efficient resource exploitation, as well as maintenance of the transport system throughout the length of the Russia is extremely difficult. So, why did the Russians expand their territory to such a terrible extent? The main problem is the geography of Russia. The center of Russia lies on a part of the Great European Plain. Around Moscow, there are not many major river systems and dangerous high mountains to cover. All Russia has a huge plain that creates a fatal weakness in its national security and defense since its founding. Therefore, in the 13th century, when the Mongols Huns crossed the Volga into Russia, they defeated the Russians twice, burned the capital Kiev, forced the Russian nobility to surrender, and became vassals to the Mongol Empire. In the 17th century, the Polish cavalry attacked Russia, scattered at the Battle of the Kruzhin, then swept into Moscow to depose the Tsar. And seems that any country's army can easily march straight into Russia without encountering any major geographic obstacle, as well as being able to attack Russia from all directions. When the Russian army had to defend itself spread out over a front thousand of kilometers long, there was no way to lure the enemy into key points, and since then the Russians have also created a national strategy of their own, which is to expand the territory to protect the heart of Moscow. And this started from the time of Tsar Ivan. Russia continuously expanded its wars of aggression to all sides. Their goal was to capture as much land as possible, and they did not need to care too much to the value of land or natural resources. Or is it worth the bloodshed? In particular, they only target large and dangerous mountain ranges, which can form natural defensive walls, such as the Carpathian Mountains and the Caucasus Mountains or Urals. And another important location is the narrowest European plain before extending straight to Moscow. Poland is certainly located in this throat position, so this is the goal that Russia always wants to occupy. All these wars of aggression were aimed at creating a huge buffer zone from Moscow. This forced the enemy to march through an extremely large and difficult territory before entering the stronghold of Moscow. And also from here, an enemy who wants to invade Russian territory must face a nightmare called Russian winter, because the marching route is too time-consuming. History has shown us how Hitler felt miserably in their attempt to invade this empire in the winter. In war, logistics is extremely important. The establishment of a supply system thousands of kilometers long into enemy territory and having to constantly fight with guerrillas and cold weather was the obsession of the almost unfitted leaders in the Western battlefield. The armies of Hitler were not defeated by the Russians, but they were slaughtered by the Russian winter. In addition, having a large territory gives Russia a place to retreat in war when needed. During World War II, when German troops invaded Russia, Stalin ordered the removal of all factories as well as the transfer of agricultural equipment from Ukraine to the Moscow region to be transported to production in the Ural Mountains and avoid the bombs of German planes. And then they just patiently wait for Mother Nature to do her things. Next is another fatal weakness that makes Russia always worried, that is the warm water seaport. Sea shipping is by far the cheapest and fastest shipping method. Having a seaport means trading with the whole world, serving economic development, developing the navy to serve national defense. But the Russian winter makes the country miserable. because most of the seaports here are frozen. Therefore, the leaders of Russia are always trying to find a sea route that can open the way for Russia to trade with the world. And Tsar Peter the Great also fought for 20 years with the Swedish Empire to regain the Neva Delta, which later became the port city of St. Petersburg. Later, Tsars always sought to control Crimea, take over Sevastopol, and open the way for Russia to the Black Sea. In the Far East, Russia always tried to suppress the Qing dynasty, occupy the port of Vladivostok in Manchuria, as well as coerced and rented Chinese seaports in Liaoning, Hubei, and Shandong. Even when the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, Russia did its best to keep the Kaliningrad territory in the middle of Poland, rotating its naval base. The geography of Russia forced them to choose between expansion or death. Over the course of its history, this country had to push back countless other nations to form what is today Russia. Although geography may not be the only factor, it is perhaps one of the most important factors for Russia to decide to expand its territory, build and defend their country. Thank you for watching the video. Remember to like, share and subscribe our channel. See you later.